Hello and welcome to the Masterclass. If you could just let me know that you can see me and you can hear me, and you can also see Ableton and hear Ableton. If someone can let me know, that'd be great. Okay, that's good. All fine. Brilliant. Thank you guys for letting me know. Okay, so today I'm going to start arranging the track that we've done, and we've already started the process by putting scenes together in previous masterclasses. But I'm gonna basically complete what I've done so far and build a rough arrangement. I've only got half an hour for a demonstration, so we'll see how far we go. But I want to demonstrate how we can then do some automation and some editing of the arrangement once we've recorded it live from the session view, and maybe look at some build-ups and breakdowns and stuff like that, because they're questions that I get asked a lot. So let's have a look at this. So I've already started with this intro here. So we've started building this arrangement already. The stab comes in here. So I'm going to put an extra scene in here, bring the stab in after the percussion. And hopefully by now, this is all a concept you're all familiar with. We're building up scenes to make a rough arrangement. So that's going to be my stab there. And then the open hi-hat comes in there. And then we had the first kind of breakdown with the vocal and the bass introduced. And then we had dropping in here. So now we need to work out what we're going to do after this to bring it into the main breakdown of the track and the main body of the track. So I'm going to put an extra scene in here. We've got everything going at once, or most of the elements we've got going at once, but we've got some more melodic elements here. Let's hear what else we've got. So I'm just going to check out the other elements we've got. Okay, so we've got that shaker. We haven't even put that in yet, so maybe we'll introduce that to add a little bit more energy in there. And we're going to get maybe we'll bring this one in here for now, this arpeggiator, and I think we've already drawn some automation into this. If you look here, we've drawn that automation in, so that filter's rising up anyway. So I'm going to bring that into that part of the track here. So I'm just going to call this shaker. Let's make this full screen. Shaker plus art. There we go. And then we have a so I'm going to actually mess around with this arpeggiator because I'm not feeling it 100%. Okay, so I'm going to keep it like that. It kind of works. It's not the best, but you know, it's going to work for the purpose of this. So that's the point at which I'm going to start breaking the track down. Now, I could either go from a high point straight into a breakdown, or something that I quite like doing is just like dropping out all the high elements before I go into a breakdown to kind of just let people know that something's coming. So I'm going to go from here. Once again, I'm going to remove the stop button off there, so this arpeggiator, let's call this up. So this arpeggiator is still running, and then I'm going to hit and that's going to bring me into, so that's going to sound like this with the bass line. So now the next step is I want to make the breakdown. So I'm going to insert a scene here, and I'm going to call this break. I'm going to decide what I want to do in my breakdown. And we've got that pad that I wanted to introduce in the breakdown as well. So I'm going to keep this arc going. I'm going to drop out the bass line, so I'm just going to remove the stop button there by hitting Command and E there. Same with the clap. I think maybe I'm going to leave that break beat in there. Maybe I'll leave it out actually. We'll stop it out and we can reintroduce that. Okay, so that sounds quite good for where I want to go with the breakdown. And now we had that pad that we haven't used yet. So I'm going to use that. I'm only going to use that in the breakdown actually. So I'm going to create another one of these break scenes here. I'm going to remove the pad from there. I'm going to hit that there. And I'm going to introduce this break beat again. I'm going to put a little bit of a filter sweep on here. I thought we'd done it already. Maybe we'd done it somewhere else. Let me see. No, we haven't done that yet. So let me do a little. Maybe we can actually sweep the filter on. So I'm going to make quite a short filter sweep on this pad here. So once again, I'm going to go to Celestial pad, filter cutoff, and I'm going to unlink this here, make this very, very long here, and then I'm going to just do it over quite a short space of time because I don't want a massively long breakdown. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to here, but with the bass line. So I'm going to grab this here, I'm going to put this after the break, and I'm going to just make sure that I copy down all the elements that have been taken out of the track. Maybe we'll put that vocal chop in the breakdown as well, because that was doing some crazy stuff. We'll bring in that bass line here, and this is going to be called Back In. So now, hopefully using all this stuff, I can actually just jam out a very rough and ready arrangement into the arrange page. And then I can start editing it and making things work exactly how I want them to. I'm just going to check in on the YouTube channel. Okay, so everything's watching, everything's working fine. People are watching, that's all good. So right, so I'm just going to, probably I don't have to, but I'm just going to select everything in the arrange page that we've done before. I'm just going to delete it all by hitting the delete button. And now I'm going to try and make a 4-minute kind of radio edit of this track. So I'm going to, yeah, my quantizer is already set to 4 bars. I've got this intro here, and then I've got this whole arrangement laid out in scenes roughly, and it is quite rough to be honest. But you know, that's the main part of the editing comes in the in the arrange page. So this is a method that I have been using to arrange tracks for quite a while. It works out really well for me. So I'm just going to make sure I've triggered that first scene there, and then I'm going to hit the record button. We're just going to build this track nicely. And we may have triggered things at slightly the wrong time, but we can always go and edit that in the arrange page. As you can see, as we're recording this in, this is all getting recorded in. And as this is quite a short track, we're going to go into the breakdown quite early. And now we're back into the main body of the track. So we can just think about doing a, you know, keeping this flowing for a little bit, and there's no reason why we can't drop elements out freestyle now by using stop buttons. Like this, we could put this in for 4 bars. So we're coming up to the 4-minute mark, so I'm going to think about doing an outro. So I'm going to use that outro. I'm going to use the intro as an outro now. and then I can just hit an empty scene. So that's our rough arrangement. So now if I go back into the arrange page here, we have all this stuff here, and all the automation, everything that we've got is in here, and we haven't put any of those vocals in yet because we're going to put them in the arrange page. So at the moment we've got rough structure. There's a few things that I didn't like in there anyway, so I noticed that that stab was far too loud in the mix. I'm going to turn that right down to hear how that sounds. Okay, so and I forgot to put that hat in, so I can just copy that across into the arrangement wherever the glitch hat is. So let's get that vocal, the first check it out vocal in there. So now I'm just going to start adding things to the arrangement, start making it make more sense. So the first, add some delay on that, so I'm going to add a little bit of automation on the delay there, just like this, extreme. And one thing that I like to do is I like to, when I'm introducing new elements, I like to maybe drop out a kick drum or you know, make it when making transitions in a track. I always say that you need to either make a feature of it, or you have to cover it up. So we'll explore that a little bit. So I'm going to drop that sub kick in there, and let me just go like this. Take this kick drum out here. I'm just going to remove this part here. So now this goes like this. And then that sub kick drum, I'm going to move that vocal over so it kind of goes over the transition. So, and then we've introduced that element nicely there. And I'm going to do something else to introduce these hi-hats, something similar. Maybe we'll use another one of those vocals. That stab kind of filters in nicely anyway. So that works quite nicely in there. So I'm going to drop this second vocal into here. Same idea. So I'm just going to put some delay on it. Mixer. Going to put some delay on it, and that's going to introduce the hi-hat, so it gives it a little bit of a feeling. Put delay on it like that, so now maybe move it across a bit more this way, so it's introducing those hi-hats. So we're just making our transitions a little bit smoother by making a bit of a feature of them. And then we've got this breakdown here, first break. So what I want to explore now, because people ask me about making risers. How can you make risers? So I really like analog for making risers and automating analog. So let me create a new channel here, MIDI track. So I'm going to create a MIDI track here like this. And I'm just going to grab an analog. So I'm going to go into my instruments and I'm going to go to analog. And if I drop that in there like that, now I'm just going to use oscillator 1. I'm just going to use the noise on oscillator 1. So I'm going to turn oscillator 2 off there, and I'm going to put this oscillator so the shape of the waveform is noise, so it's that little squiggly line there. Now all I need to do is draw a MIDI note. So I'm just going to make a MIDI clip here. Where is my analog? This is why it's good to set up groups, which I haven't done, because then you can get a little bit more organised. Where are you, analog? Good example of ways you get. And if you ever do get lost, you can select the first channel and select the last channel, and just by hitting Shift and then just pressing that little button there, and that just gets rid of all your automation channels, all that kind of stuff. So there's my analog there. So I'm going to call that riser. So now I've got a little, if I just draw this here and I insert a MIDI clip into here. There we go. So I've inserted a MIDI clip, and I'm going to make this riser actually start here. I'm going to stretch this MIDI clip out. So I'm going to have this riser so it happens over my breakdown. So doesn't matter what note I play now. It's all white noise, so it's all the same. So I just need, so this is not a looping clip. This is one long clip like that. And I'm going to draw a long note in there like that. There we go. So now when I play that, we have one long note of white noise. But what I want to do is I want to turn the frequency of the filter right down like that and turn the resonance up here. So now we have that. Now I also want to automate the volume of that channel, and one thing I will say is that we should never automate a volume fader in Ableton, because if we automate the volume fader, that means that we can't alter the mix afterwards. So I'm going to put a utility on the channel here, like this, and I'm going to automate that, the volume, the gain of that utility. So I'm just going to go into my channel here, go to gain here, and I'm going to draw that gain. Oh, I don't need it to be that long, so let's zoom in here, and let's draw it so it goes like that. So now we've got a little bit of a gain sweep on that. We've got a nice little gain sweep on the white noise, and we've got a nice resonant filter on there. So now I'm going to go to analog, and I'm going to actually just need to find the frequency here. So the best way to do that is probably just to move that, and then hopefully, oh, there we go, filter 1 frequency. And now I can think about doing a bit of a filter sweep on there. So now my riser will go like this. I think I need to turn this down a little bit, it's quite loud, and add some delay or reverb. So I'm going to go to my mixer here, just going to go to delay here, I'm going to turn that up here. And maybe I could do something like have my have the resonant, the frequency come right down at the end as well, so it goes up and down. So let me tweak this again, and then okay, so let's re-enable that, and then so we're going to make it so it goes up to there, and then it's going to come down like that. So we're going to get a nice sweep on that. So we've got something like. So that's how we can make our own risers quite simply. So I'm aware of time, so I just want to talk about a snare roll and a little trick to get a breakdown sounding nice. So look, let's go into our breakdown. We've got this beat that's coming up in this vocal chop. We only want a little bit of that vocal chop there. So I'm going to create a snare roll. I'm going to do it in the session view this time. So I'm just going to go create MIDI track here, and I'm going to go to my drums, and I'm just going to use a standard 909 kit. I like the snare of a 909 kit for a snare roll here. Going to drop that in there like that, and going to select that, and I'm just going to set up a series of scenes. So going to have that one. Then I'm going to have that one there. Jacob, I'm doing a masterclass. And so we've got 3 scenes here like this. So we have that's a classic snare roll, so I'm just going to copy these into the arrange page like this. There we go. I'm going to copy that like that. And I'm going to drop that into this channel here. Like this, and just have it so it's lined up here. Going to hit this here, so we have and what I'm going to do is a classic little trick which works really well in build-ups. I'm going to get rid of everything from this breakdown now, apart from, well, actually everything, so it's complete silence. And now I'm going to grab that vocal that we had before, the one that we haven't used yet, and so this vocal reverse. And I'm going to drop this into the arrangement, so we have this coming in at the right time. So let me just check where the... Okay, so we need that to do this, like that. Okay, we've got nice delay on there as well. So now our breakdown does this, and drop does this. So let's make sure that I've got this. So we've got... Take the solo off, that's going to help. So now our breakdown does this. Maybe that needs to go up a little bit in volume, so let's try it again. And there we go, we have a lot going on. So hopefully, try to fit in a lot into this masterclass, but hopefully that's a few little tips for getting some transitions going in the arrangement, getting a quick arrangement done, and a couple of things you can do on a breakdown to kind of add some intensity and some builds and stuff. So now it's over to your questions. Hello guys, questions please. Okay, so transition effects you can put on the master channel. Okay, so let's have a little look at some of the stuff that I would do. One thing that I always like to put on the master channel in a track like this is you can use an auto filter or EQ. So I could, for example, my master channel here, I could put auto filter. It's always really good. High pass filters work a treat. So we're here. So the thing is that I don't want my filter to be on all the way through the track. So I'm going to put my filter to here like that. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the filter is off. So I'm going to go to my auto filter here and then device on. I'm going to make sure it's off until I need it. So then coming into my breakdown, I can put my auto filter on here, for example, and have that going on into the breakdown. And then I need to do a sweep on the auto filter here. Frequency, so I could start really low like this so you can hardly hear it at all. And then move up like that if I wanted. And then come back down, something like that could add a bit of intensity somehow. So yeah, something like that, a filter sweep will be good. The other thing you can do is you can use EQ3 is a nice one, but once again, it's really important that you actually don't, it's even more important I think with EQ3 that you have it set to device off. And then I quite often use this, not necessarily in the breakdowns of the tracks, but at places throughout the tracks to give like a DJ dropping out the bass kind of effect. So I'll turn my bass down like that, turn the frequency down a little bit like that, and then have the device off, and then anytime I want to introduce that DJ effect, I can just really kind of put them in, and it kind of gives it quite a live DJ feeling. People use that quite a lot, and then you can just use it whenever you want, and you can also then automate the frequency low as well to get a little bit of a sweep on that. So you could so that's like a DJ kind of playing around with the bass pot on the DJ mixer. You could do that. You could also use, if you wanted to be a little bit more adventurous, you could use other frequencies on there as well. Same with the filter. You could use a low pass filter. It's a classic track from a lot of 90s house music, and on the video it always used to be the toilet scene, because they'd have auto filter that was, well, it wasn't an auto filter back in those days, so they didn't have Ableton, but they would just switch. Let's put this one on here, auto filter 3 on here, device on and off, switch it on certain parts of the track, and then you'll get that toilet scene effect. So that's cutting out all the high frequencies, and then you can drop them back in. Oh, we already had a filter on there already, but let's try that over here, for example. So you could let's drop it out here. So it's a classic, another classic effect that I would use. You could also use some delays, I suppose, on your master channel. Once again, it's going to give you like a bit of a DJ mixer effect, because you know when a DJ's mixing, they're going to put delays over the whole track. So you could do, you know, a number of things actually. But anything you put on the master is going to be quite a, you know, it's not really going to be a massively subtle effect. It's going to be quite a big effect, really. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. You could, yeah, I've seen examples of putting the auto filter in an effect rack to ensure it isn't audible when unwanted. You could do it that way as well. The thing is, I think that was more important in older versions of Ableton, because you used to get a lot of pops and clicks when you would automate devices on and off. But certainly in 9 and definitely in 10, they've kind of stopped that that popping and clicking that you used to get. So you had to have workarounds like that. I think now it's kind of fine just to put it on the master channel and automate it on and off. But if you do start getting any kind of popping and clicking or anything along those lines, then yeah, definitely think about more complex ways of achieving it. What techniques, for example, enhancing a drop, could you suggest? So, I mean, it totally depends on the music, but you know, sometimes the main drop in the track can be enhanced by just adding one extra drum that isn't anywhere else in the track. Like in techno, it could be a ride cymbal. But also, as effective is, you know, how I was explaining before. Like, you take a lot of stuff out, so sometimes it's effective to actually drop into far less stuff. So drop into something that's really, really stripped down. rather than dropping into everything going on, and that works quite a lot. And then you can use like delay effects and effects, maybe a different variation of that riser that we did, or samples, or things going through delays, short sounds going through delays to start creating something a little bit more interesting on your drop. So yeah, there's a number of things. You could also, change things like your feedback time on your delays, or automate the reverb so a little bit more on certain things, or make little subtle changes like that that may not be consciously audible but could make a big difference, to the impact. Also, maybe some people could automate the kick drum if it's a 4/4 track, or the bass, so it's a little bit louder after the main drop, to give it a little bit more impact. Or you could do the opposite. You could have a utility over your whole master channel. You could turn everything down during the breakdown, and you could turn it back up during the drop as well. So there's a number of techniques you can use to get that impact really, really kind of kicking off, depending on what you want to achieve, what kind of music you want to achieve. Yeah, you can use a crash. A crash cymbal is a good one. Reverse crash, or a little bit of white noise. So we could use our filter here. So let's do something on the drop here. So I'm going to do, hold on, let me just, actually, yeah, we want the filter right up there. And let's zoom in and drop a MIDI clip in here. So we just want a really short MIDI clip here. Sorry, insert MIDI clip. There we go, there. And then I've got a MIDI clip in there. And I'm just going to put a really, can turn that delay down. We definitely don't want that delay. So I'm going to turn the delay down here. So we maybe want a little bit of reverb. Can you hear that? So we just put a really short bit of white noise in there. Or we could make it a little bit more cymbal-like, and this gives us a little bit more control over something than just using a crash, because we can then go into analog here. We can put filter type, make that a high pass filter there. Format, we don't want format, high pass filter there. Sorry, let's take that quantize off, that's a bit annoying. And then I'm gonna, so analog, we've turned that filter to there, and then we've got that frequency all the way up there. We don't want that. We could bring that down there. Oh, that's a bit crazy, right? And let's turn the resonance down as well. Filter resonance. Gonna turn that down here as well. We don't want much resonance. And now we have our own kind of crash cymbal. And if you want to get a little bit more complicated, you could make another analog, and you could mess around with the envelope. But we're going to look at that in the synthesis week, how we can kind of start designing things in a little bit more detail in analog. But yeah, a crash cymbal will work, or you can make your own crash cymbal, or you can use a little bit of white noise. Have a number of options. So now we have that, basically. Can you hear? So it's like a crash almost. So that we could use that, something along those lines. When making arrangements, how regularly do you arrange to a formula or reference track via spontaneous arranging live? Right. So I think once you get into the habit of it, you kind of know how tracks should be arranged, or how you want your track to be arranged. So the live thing doesn't become so random. It becomes a little bit more formulaic itself. But it totally depends on the genre and how you want your music to be. Some things are ultra formulaic. If you want to make standard, beatport, top 10, tech house, then a lot of it forms into a very strict arrangement. If you want those DJs to play, it has to have the first drop at the right place and then the main breakdown. Other more experimental forms of house and techno can completely have crazy off the wall arrangements. Same with all music. So yeah, I mean, also that method of arranging, it works really well for me, and I think different people's brains work a little bit differently as well. So I think some people are really good at putting blocks together on a screen, and other people prefer to feel it and do it live. So it really depends on your chosen method, but I would say that everyone should at least experience the session view way of doing things before they move on and decide they want to just do the arrange page, because a lot of people have Ableton and they've never actually messed around with session view, and they've never arranged anything that way because they're used to other DAWs. So yeah, and the other thing, is it style dependent? Well, I think if you're writing a song with live instruments and all that kind of thing, I don't think session view is going to be as useful, because you want to record everything in the arrange page, I would say. So for kind of loop and pattern based music, I would say session view is a really good idea. If you're talking about more traditional song structures, I mean, you can still, if you're doing a song structure like an electronic strong track that you want a vocalist to sing on afterwards, then that's fine, you can do it in session view. But if you're kind of got a guitarist and all these other people, and you've kind of want to write a song in a kind of linear arranged fashion with full recordings, not just loops of recordings, then I would say that arrange page is probably the answer. So hopefully that answers the questions. Okay, can I explain send effects again? Yeah, absolutely no problem there, mate. Right, so with a send effect, you're just sending a copy of this channel to an effects unit. So it comes from the old analog mixers, where you only had, people couldn't afford to buy an effects unit for every channel on a mixer. So the solution was to buy a couple of good effects units and be able to send whatever you need from your mix into those effects units. So it's a way of getting multiple channels into an effects unit in parallel. So simple. Think of it as sending a copy of that channel. So here's my snare roll I did. I have A and B as default in Ableton. When you open up Ableton, you have returns A and B. A is your reverb, B is your delay. So I can add as many of these as I want. Well, I don't think it's as many as I want. I never know the limit on insert um, on return tracks. Actually, I don't know how many you can add. I'm guessing it's not unlimited, but you can add as many as you need. I think I've never run out of them. So there we go. And then you can name that track if you want, or I can drop any effect into that track. So let's go for a ping pong delay in B. And when I'm using ascend and return, it's important to note that I want that effect to be 100% wet. I only want the effect coming from that channel, unless you decide for a creative reason that you want it to be different. But as standard, I'm going to turn that up to wet because we're listening to this in parallel. We're still listening to the signal coming from the channel plus the signal coming from the delay. So at the moment, that's just that channel. My ping pong delay is on B. So when I turn that up, that starts sending a copy of this, what's coming out that channel, to the effect over here. So I can just send a short burst of it. Or I can send all of it. Or I can send it and stop sending it. So that's what I'm doing. Now, by default, it's post fader. So when I turn this fader down, that means it's after the fader. The effect send will turn down as well. So right, but I can also put this on pre-fader here. So we put that one on pre-fader, which means you're going to get a copy of what's coming out of this channel before it goes to the fader here. So I'm going to, even though the volume's down on this channel, that's going to be sending to the effect. Now you can put any effect you want on a return, and you can add returns as you want. You can also send them back to themselves if you want to create some crazy regenerating echoes. So I can send this to itself. An effect that's used a lot in dub. Or I could send them to other effects as well. Hopefully that was quite a brief explanation, but hopefully that was helpful. Oh, 12 is the limit, is it? Yeah, it can't be. You're right. It has to be something like 12 because you don't have much space on here, and I guess these start turning to numbers when you start adding more. You don't have the full fader on there. I don't know. I've never used that many returns, so thank you for that, Rich. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left, so that's enough time for a couple of quick questions. So we've still got 4 minutes. Time to fire some questions over, guys. Ah, there we go. When rendering a track for exporting, is it sensible to render be on the last MIDI audio block to catch? Yes, mate, that is a very, very good question. I was speaking to my mate who does mastering actually the other day, and he said all the time he gets people sending tracks for mastering, and should have a delay tail at the end of them, and they stop them dead at the end of the bar. So I think at the end of the bar of the last bar of the track, whereas actually the delay carries on over that point. So I think it's always a good idea to just have if you have got a delay effect at the end of the track, is that you have a quick listen. So let's say we've got a track here and it ends here. Let's mock this up, shall we? I know we had a clap that should have carried on. So let's see what we got on this clap here. So let's go mixer, delay. So okay, so that clap, let's put that up there like that. So now the clap on the end of the track goes like this. So yeah, you just listen to roughly where that clap finishes, and then you just bounce it from there. So to be safe, I'll probably do that. And so you're going to have that delay at the end of the bounce of the track. Otherwise, it's just going to sound weird, basically. And I'm someone that does like to do a little bit of a cool outro on the end of tracks, where you've got a delay effect or something like that. If you want it to stop suddenly, that's cool, but just don't put a delay effect on the end of it. So yeah, that's a really good question, actually. Well brought up, mate. Well brought up. I've seen people creating arrangements start their tracks well after the first bar. Why do they do this? Yeah, quite right. So quite a few people do that, and I think there are people that arrange in a more traditional fashion. So what they have all their stuff that they need for the track in the first kind of 16 bars, and then they'll just like copy it across when they need it, and maybe they'll delete that afterwards, or something like that. So I think that's something for people who I see people do that as well. But I think if you're going to be recording from session view, it's not something you would do so much. You don't really need that space at the beginning of the track, although you could have it if you wanted to keep some elements there, so you don't have to keep bouncing between session view and arrange view, I suppose. So yeah, so that is probably why you'd want to do that, so you can keep a couple of elements handy to grab anytime you want. Okay, well look, no, there's not that I can think of. There's no technical reason for it. You could maybe argue that you want to leave the DAW playing for a little bit before the track starts. But I've never had an issue with that. All right, mate. Well, look. All right, everyone. I mean, thank you for joining me. It was fun. Hopefully you got something from it, and let's catch up very soon, people. Take it easy.